Welcome to tonight, December 9th, Changing Times, Changing World show. And tonight I wanted to have something more lighthearted because, gosh, we need it right now. And my daughter, who had a very funny routine because she has watched me. I have been openly pagan since I was 18. And so she grew up in the peripheries of the pagan community. Not being Wiccan, we weren't in the maelstrom of that, but she frequently made enough snarky comments that made us laugh that she put it together as a routine. And I asked her to do it tonight, but she is still not here yet. And when she gets here, then we shall hope to share her wit and wisdom. Meanwhile, I will be the opening act. And to start us off, I am going to read to you, because I have not memorized it, The Charge of the Goddess. At Ecumenicon a few years ago, we wanted to have something, so many wonderful things that were very deep and esoteric and wonderful, that we had we needed to lighten up. So I printed out every version of The Charge of the Goddess I could find that was, oh, I didn't remember this one, Charge of the Chocolate. I might do that if she stays gone a little bit longer. But I made up, they didn't seem to have one, which, Charge of the Credit Card Goddess. No, I think not. We just printed these out, and everybody, oh Lordy, charge of the, oh my goddess. Everybody grabbed one of these, and Charge of the Nice Goddess, Martha Stewart, Betty Crocker, Miss Manners, and read them. There's mine. No one had done one that spoke to my background, which is, I grew up in Maine. I am a maniac born and bred, and that is, I'm proud to do that, to claim that title. So this is going to sound an awful lot like my grandmother. And I hope everyone here knows The Charge of the Goddess, because it won't be very funny if you don't. But this is the Yankee Goddess. Yeah, pull up a chair and pour yourself a mug of coffee from the stove and find yourself something to work on, because idle hands will find something stupid to do. And listen while we go over the words of the Great Mother, who has been called by many names, and if you aren't careful which ones you use, you may be standing up for a week. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. But for now, hush up and listen. Those that know what's what have known who I was for time out of mind. And when you find folk with more sense than to shake a coon cat, you can get together with them as often as you can. If you do it when the moon is full, you'll save on kerosene. Do it somewhere out of sight here, no need to upset the neighbors. And if you have a lick of sense in you, I will teach you all that you need to know from cradle to grave, because when you understand what you're looking at, then you can get on with the current and not against it, and you'll be able to get there from here. You can worship me dressed in your birthday suit, like you was going skinny dipping. But if you do it before the last frost or after the first frost or during black fly or mosquito season, that know that the sound of rumbling in the distance ain't thunder. It's me laughing at you. I want all my children to laugh and dance and sing and eat and drink, but just use your heads. That's what they are for. You may not be the brightest or the best, but you can always do your best. And I'll be with you for the whole trip. And when you're done, you come back to my place and rest and put your feet up with your friends before I send you off again. And I'll tell you the mystery. Sometimes life is hard, but you're making it harder by thinking it is. I want you to work hard, play hard, love hard, and I want you to enjoy it all. The good with the bad. And after you die, I'll welcome you home and explain the parts that you still don't get and let you do it over if you're a trifle slow. Don't you be wasting any of the blessings I give you in this world by way of sacrifice. You need it, keep it. That's why I gave it to you. And if you don't need it, pass it on to your kids and your family and friends. I gave you all these blessings for you to use and share. And if you waste it, I will make sure you want it later. Ask me for whatever you might need and be careful what you ask for, because I have a wicked pisser sense of humor and get a good laugh out of watching the slow learners. I want you to get together and learn and celebrate and get things done and have a good time and know me. Do it often enough you don't forget how, but also know that every single thing that you do that is good and loving and useful is done in my honor, and it tickles me something fierce. So if you can't do something formal, just go out and watch your sunset or kiss your sweetheart or enjoy a cold one and know I'm there with you, even if you haven't time to slow down between jobs. If you can't get off on what I just set before your eyes, you sure ain't gonna find it in a ritual or a building or a book. I'm there already, always have been, always will be. And if you don't know that, then you can't get there from here. And that is the Yankee charge of the goddess. And I'm still on my own. So I'm going to look and see if I can find and read to you the, well, I don't think I can do that accent. Nice thing was we had a bunch of people, they could do a lot of accents. Charge of the chocolate. Listen to the words of the great mother who was of old called Godiva, Ethel M., Sarah Lee, Nestle, Mrs. C., and by many other names. Whenever you have one of these cravings, once in a while, and better it be when your checkbook is full, then shall you assemble in a public place and bring offerings of money to the spirit of me who was queen of all goodies. And in the mall you shall assemble, and you who have eaten your chocolate and are hungry for more. To you I shall bring good things to your tongue, and you shall be free from depression. And as a sign that you are truly free, you shall have chocolate smears on your cheeks, and you shall munch, nosh, snack, feast, and make yummy noises, all in my presence. For mine is the ecstasy of phenylalanine, and mine is also the joy on earth, yea, even to high orbit, for my law is, melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Keep clean your fingers, carry wet ones always, and let none stop you aside. Okay. For mine is the secret that opens your mouth. Mine is the taste that puts a smile on your lips and comfy padding around your hips. I am the gracious goddess who gives the gift of joy into the tummies of men and women. Upon earth, I give knowledge of all things delicious and beyond death as well. I can't do much there. Sorry about that. I demand only your money in sacrifice, for behold, chocolate is a business, and you have to pay for these truffles before you eat them. Hear now the words of the goody goddess, she that in the dust of whose feet are cheap imitations, whose body graces candy racks and fine stores everywhere. I who am the beauty of chocolate chips and the satisfying softness of big bars and the mystery of how they got the filling inside the truffles. Fill the hearts of all but Philistines with desire, and call unto the soul to arise and come unto me, for I am the soul of candy. From me do all confessions spring, and unto me all of you shall return again and again and again and again. Before me, smeared face, beloved of women and men, thine inmost divine self shall be enfolded in the raptures of overdose. Let my taste be within thy mouth that rejoices, for behold, all acts of yumminess and pleasure are my rituals. Therefore, let there be gooiness and mess, crispness and crackling, big slake and bite-sized pieces, peanut butter and chocolate-covered cherries, all within you. And you who think to seek me know that you're in your seeking and yearning, and avail you not unless you know the mystery. We shall sell no chocolate until you pay for it. For behold, I have been with you since you were just a baby, and I am that which is attained nearly any shop in the land. Messed be. Oh, here now the words of the chocolate god, who is called Ghirardelli, Milton Snavely, Hershey, Bosco, Fudgesicle, and many other names. I am the strength of the candy rack, and the piece that fell on the floor, but looks like it may not have gotten dirty, and the deepest, bitterest of dark chocolate, no matter how you try to resist the call of chocolate, I will hunt you out, and I shall become your sacred prey. I am warmth of hot chocolate in the dead of winter. Ooh, yeah. And the call of the road that leads you to the really expensive Godiva store downtown. I give you, my creatures, the fire of love of chocolate, power of jaw strength to bite off a piece of that frozen Milky Way bar, and shelter of Haagen-Dazs when the big date didn't work out. You are dear to me, and I install in you my power and a piece of chocolate that you had forgotten you had hidden, and the power of vision and magical sight with which you can spot candy counter a mile away. By the powers of half-melted bar and the glorious sun, I charge you, by the darkest depths of the bottom of the cocoa pot, lingering smell of bittersweet chocolate, I charge you, and by the beauty of perfectly swirled vanilla buttercream, I charge you. Follow your heart and your instinct, wherever they may lead you. The wealth of your pocket can buy you treats that a Mayan king would envy. That's true. Take joy in that first bite of lecithin emulsified cocoa, and in the last satisfying slurp of yoo-hoo. Yet you must be wary of deceit. Eat not of that which is called baking chocolate, for it be vile and bitter. Hey. Lastly, always remember to leave some chocolate behind you. Be not greedy, but let yourself be known as a connoisseur. Leave a little for someone else. I'm with you always, just over your shoulder, around the next corner. I am the Lord of Chocolate, and when you've reached the end of your hoard, I will never be further away from you than the 7-Eleven on the corner. I am the spirit of the wild child, the inner child who can never get quite enough. If you're a true chocolate lover, then your soul and mine are intertwined. May the great wings of Inanna enfold you. May the wisdom of Hecate guide you. And above all, may the curiosity of Persephone always keep you fresh, young at heart and mentally alive. This is copyrighted by John Shepherd and performed at Dragon Fest, August 1993. Most of these are attributed. We have the guest has arrived. Have you had something to eat, my love?
No, that's all right. I can wait.
I have Willow, who is ready to. Oh goodness, I got to admit to. My guest has arrived. Hello, Willow.
Hello.
She's going to indulge us with her view on having grown up with people who are well-meaning, if not very bright. Okay.
I'm going to level with you. I thought I was going to be home soon enough that I could get my notes off my computer, because I have not given the lecture on stupidity and magic in, well over a decade. The last decade's been kind of shit. I'm sure you all noticed.
You want to go to your computer?
I don't know how fast I could find it.
Okay.
That's getting to be a quite old computer, and it needs time to think.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you can remember things.
I can remember lots of things. The original point of the Stupidity and Magic, the lecture and the web comic, which can be found on the Drunk Duck these days. It's not the Drunk Duck anymore. It's now just the Duck. Okay. Anyway, it's not important. Is that over the course of my life, I saw a bunch of people being really stupid in how they used, practiced, and thought about magic. I find the basic Stupidity and Magic comes in about 3 basic types. The benign, where you just don't know something, and so you're just scrabbling for things. The bothersome, where you know a little and that's enough to get you in trouble, and the really dangerous, where you don't know anything but you think you do. And so you are perfectly willing to go out and tell other people how very important it is that you should know these things. And now with the advent of the internet being so widespread, these things can get everywhere and are often not attributed. So people will read these things and their immediate thought will be, well, I've read it on the internet. When I was younger, there was, on Garfield's or Friends, there was a sequence called, "If you saw it on television, it must be true." And in which he would say any number of untrue things and then ended with, "If you've seen it on television, it must be true." And frankly, that is the kind of thing that people will then do now. It's just like, well, I read it on the internet and it had lots of comments, so it must be true. And frankly, having perused a lot of the published works of various pagan people, published works are not always the great thing. Just do remember that you can go into a reputable bookseller, or you could, if you can find one, and purchase a paperback copy of the Necronomicon, because anything good needs to have a barcode, or anything, any really good book comes out in paperback. And while the Necronomicon is not strictly a magical tome, it's very viewed on it. It's, anyway.
You're telling about Fred the Silence guys that read it out in the graveyard on Halloween?
No.
Oh.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, then you didn't. That's not
No. I have my own brushes with stupidity and magic, on account of I'm being young and willing to follow along while these people who have no grounding in magic or reality decide I'm going to have a circle based loosely on things I saw in movies.
Ouch.
Which, the worst part is, it can work because there is a significant portion of magic which is fueled entirely with belief. So if you get enough people believing it, you will, oh yes, sleepovers. Sleepovers are a big thing to pass things. Has anyone actually ever succeeded at the light as a feather, stiff as a board thing? Because that always sounded really cool, but I never had enough friends to try it with. In theory, you can enter a trance state sufficient that you will levitate, but I don't think a bunch of 12-year-olds are going to do it.
No. I have unmuted so you can hear laughter, by the way.
I can verify that if you walk in on said bunch of 12-year-olds in a dark room unexpectedly, they will do a good imitation of levitating briefly.
Well, that's not untrue.
It isn't working.
What am I supposed to be doing?
Letting them into the.
Oh,
okay. They're all admitted. Okay.
yeah, no, she's doing it.
My bad.
People who know what they're doing appear to have it handled.
Oh, good.
Which is only semi-good advice when it comes to magic. So I don't know how many of you people have been to the Pennsic Wars.
One time.
One time.
Always wanted to.
It is a lovely thing. Unfortunately, you do end up with a lot of semi-supervised 15 to 25-year-olds who may or may not have the best idea. Although, so at Pennsic, it is a large gathering of people that goes on for 2 weeks, and you can wander around and make friends at pretty much any time of day. But at night, you can go around to various campfires and meet people and talk to people and overhear the most fascinating conversations. For instance, and there's a lot of overlap between pagans and Scadians being historical reenactors. And so they will be gathered in a group of friends and look, I've got all these people here. Let's have a circle. Only they're 15 to 20-year-olds and they have no idea what they're doing. As I mentioned, with things that they vaguely remembered from the. So at one point I was going around with my friends and visiting campfires and talking to people, mostly because I had brewed too much mead and I needed to get rid of it. Which is a lot harder than you could think it was. You'd think that would be easy, but apparently I didn't look trustworthy or something. I don't know, because the people I was walking around with genuinely drank something that tasted and looked like peach scented nail polish remover. And I noticed because I was 22 and I went back twice to make sure. I have never been exposed to stuff that glows and bubbles.
Ooh.
I know how you do it. I've never been exposed to it. I've also never been exposed to strawberry surprise, which I was given to understand used to be a rite of passage in young drinkers at Penzic. The surprise is there are no strawberries. No, my surprise was here. I'll try some of your mead, but right now my goblet's full. And I'm like, okay. And so I take the goblet and I empty it. And what they didn't tell me was that it was half full of butterscotch schnapps. So I'm not saying I didn't make stupid choices in this timeline.
Butterscotch schnapps has its place.
Where?
At
But
Christmas, at Christmas
back
around the fire, but thing of peppermints. It's not a Penzic sort of thing.
I've never considered trying butterscotch and peppermints together. But you have both flavors going.
At any rate, so I was at a campfire and I hear these people cheerfully chatting about, yes, it's so good to have a full group. We're going to have a circle and we're going to do this in our circle. We're going to do this, and then we'll invoke the wild hunt.
Oh.
And I kind of swivel and I say, to do what? Because I'm in a tent. I mean, and at the moment, I'm not even in a tent. And growing up pagan, as I were, you have very unusual pathological fears. And one of my absolute, I am completely terrified of this for much more than is rational, is in fact the wild hunt. At some point in my, another one was the old fairy rawhide and bloody bones, a big broad hand that reaches up through the risers of the stairs and drags you under. That one I know where it came from, but the wild hunt had several sources.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, what, why are you doing this? And they're like, oh, well, you see, the wild hunt is an ancient Celtic wisdom totem.
Oh.
What?
Okay.
And they're like, well, yeah, but it's men's magic. So, and I'm like,
Okay.
can you put this off until I am no longer on site? Because
And don't tell Freya, because she sometimes leads the men's magic.
first of all, forget you and your artificially imposed gender roles. Screw you. Second off, that's the first I've heard of it. Third off, don't. But and they're like, why? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, because I like my bones in my body. Because if you call that up, you will then have no control over it. And they're like, sure we will. And I'm like, I beg your pardon. You think you call things up in circles and you're in control? You seem to have mistaken this with demon summoning. And I don't know if you've read about that, but that doesn't usually go the way the summoners expect. There is absolutely no reason that anyone should expect to call up anything, especially anything with a really well-established backstory, shall we say, anything that knows what it is, and expect it to do what you think it's going to do, as opposed to what it wants to do.
Mhm.
No one died mysteriously at that Pennsic, so I presume they either did not do it or they managed to, or it man. Either they didn't do it or they managed not to actually summon it. Both of which are perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Or it had better things to do.
Yeah, no, it's like,
I've heard of several groups doing that, and they're not knowing what the heck they're doing, and they've had significant fallout from it.
Mm.
Just
yes.
yeah, you don't call up the wild hunt.
No,
It's just a thing
really
that you
don't.
try to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, this, as I said, I am being pathologically afraid of it. I know a lot about it, so I can avoid it.
Yeah.
Although this year I heard a new bit that I hadn't heard before, about how on Christmas Eve, Odin on Sleipnir leads the wild hunt. To do what, I'm not exactly sure.
Give out presents.
Probably. But, it's just like, you sound a little cross-posty there.
Yeah.
But that happens over several hundred years of legends being retold. So
Like several weeks of internet.
I don't know where they got it. I really don't know. You can Google anything to get serious results. I once got to watch an exchange on a social media site where someone had said something that pissed someone off. Please beware if there are young ears, which I seriously doubt. I swear. And they declared, and the person who got annoyed declared that they were going to curse the person who annoyed them, and they were going to live blog it and show pictures.
Okay.
What they decided to do to create this curse was they got a bottle of Tabasco sauce. Good start, right? And then they drew a rune on their arm, and they said, yes, we're going to burn it. The thing is, oh God, I'm having a brain fart.
Tabasco sauce?
No, yeah, I know which one it is. I'm trying to remember the name.
Nikhilani?
The rune. I'm trying.
Algae?
Algae.
Room.
The
Protection.
the protection. They tried to use a protection rune to hurt someone, using Tabasco sauce to fuel it.
Okay.
Look, I'm a kitchen witch. You use what you've got around, but that was stupid.
I mean, I fully believe that intent is 99% of making,
Intent is a really powerful part,
but
but with runes, you have to pick the right rune because the rune knows what it is and will not be used for something that it's not.
and the rune is stating your intent.
Mhm.
You can't be somebody who doesn't know their pagan from their own sauce.
Oh, absolutely. That is exactly what happened. That I have every faith, as I said, stupidity in magic. People are stupid. Why would magic change that? Which was, the refrain of this basic thing. So that was entertaining in a sad way.
Yeah.
Or I tell the story.
I will now tell a story. I don't know if it's the one my mother wants, but about harkening back to what the don't call up something you don't understand. There was a group of pagans many years ago, and they decided to hold a circle and they wanted wisdom. So they decided they were going to evoke Athena. The problem was there were Gardenarians. And so they were naked. And they successfully call Athena down into their priestess. And Athena looks down at herself and says, why am I naked? And then proceeds to go up one side of them and down the other and left, leaving them feeling much wiser, but with no insight on what
Or
they
clothes.
So while your religious preferences for skyclad versus not skyclad are very important, it is also important to keep in mind who you are talking to. There are many gods or goddesses that would be perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and she appears to have locked up.
Well, hopefully they'll get it back quickly.
Yeah.
Here she is.
So
All right, you're back.
I know my internet connection is unstable. Why should it be any different than I am?
Right. Well, you locked up for a bit. You're back.
Oh, terribly sorry. What was the last thing you heard me say?
Did
you hear why?
You going into locked up? I think I totally lost what you were saying.
It was Athena and the clothes.
Yes.
Clothes,
So-
yes.
We got the whole.
Yeah.
You got the whole Athena story? Good, then you didn't
Yeah.
miss anything.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
holding down. Yeah.
Without any enlightenment.
enlightened. Without it, well, they got enlightened, but not what they were looking for.
Right.
Another time I was present at a circle and they said, and I'm like, I'm not really big on circle magic. It's not my thing. And they said, oh, you just have to guard the outside of the circle to make sure nobody interrupts. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, this is a very important part of the ritual. And I'm like, if you live in a dorm, we're at the top of a hill in the middle of the night. What I did end up doing was one of the people in the circle decided, or rather didn't really decide because he had some problems with being spirit ridden on a regular basis and made a break for it. And so what I ended up doing was sitting on the chest of this gentleman, saying, get the fuck out, you idiot. Because I am a gentle and kind soul.
Right.
And I took him sharply by the throat and forehead and said, okay, listen. And I'm talking to the horse, not the rider here. You can get exercised all you want, and we're going to get to that in a second. But your problem is there is a door in your head and it is jammed open with a large rock and the hinges are rusted open. So you've been like this for a while. You fucking want attention and you are doing this to get it.
Mm.
Find a better way. And then we put the hostile spirit in a rock and threw it in a lake because we were in our early 20s and it seemed the appropriate thing to do.
Not too bad.
Yeah, no. As a kinder and gentler Willow, I don't know if the spirit really deserved that because while it was in someone else's body causing trouble, he had essentially invited it in to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't blame a spirit for doing what it was asked to do.
True.
Now, as much as I would really like for ineptitude, like with the cursing with the Tabasco sauce and the protective rune, to prevent people from prevent people from causing trouble, I know this is not true, because one of the most inept and stupid people I ever knew So going back to being 20 and in the middle of the night, I don't know what you guys were up to when you were in your mid-20s and you hung out with your friends in the middle of the night. There was probably more drinking than there was with. So we.
I worked in the music business. There was a lot more drinking.
No. We mostly went up the hill and we hung out in the apple orchard and stole apples.
Yeah.
We hung up in the apple orchard. We looked at the stars. A little bit of smoking. Not nearly enough. I wish I'd smoked more at the time. But at the time I was a goody two shoes, and I said, "Oh no, that's illegal, so I'm not going to do it." But I'm not going to stop you guys because that's your business. Now I'm like, should have done it. would have made things a lot more entertaining and a lot less stressful. So let's start off by saying this guy was an idiot and a scumbag, which is a terrible combination,
Mm.
and had gotten brought into our friends group mostly by lying through his teeth. And then we all kind of pitied him, and then we couldn't get rid of him. So we were all up in the apple orchard, and we're hanging around, we're having a great time. The mountain that I was on at the time was really friendly. It was a wonderful place. The nature spirits were happy. We live on a node. Our lives are weird. Pixies show up. I'll get to that one later. But and all of a sudden, I start feeling this really weird tingling energy off towards the part where the forest is, as opposed to the apple orchard or down near the houses. And I like turn, and there he is staring deeply into the forest with an intense expression. And I'm like, excuse me, guys. And I stand up and I go over to him, and he has constructed this Blair Witch-esque, and I think this was before the Blair Witch, combination of sticks in a summoning pentagram formation. And as I get closer, the bad energy, the nasty juju, the creepy feeling of something is watching me, and it is not nice in the forest where he is staring increases. And I say, what the fuck are you doing? He says, there's something out there and I'm driving it away. And I'm like, not like that, you are.
Oh.
You are not. You stop right now. He says, but I've got to drive it away. And I said, it's getting closer. Stop. And I broke his summoning circle, and I read him the riot act about not summoning things onto my mountain. And he's like, it was already there. And I'm like, dude, I know this mountain. It was not already there. And the worst part was I was not coherent or bright or calm enough to try and chase it off, because I was at that point pretty fucking deep into the heebie-jeebies. It was not a nice feeling. There was just this intense feeling of being watched by something that did not like me. And so we went home and we went to bed. But the thing is, it didn't go away. There was for years, and still slightly is sometimes, this intense feeling of being watched on the mountain. I never used to be afraid of going out after dark. And after that, I was. At one point, I had to walk the dog. I got home at 11 o'clock, and it's just like, it's your job, walk the dog. And so I'm walking the dog up the mountain, and I'm like, quickly reaching paranoia levels, which on a lovely moonlit night on a broad path that you on a freaking concrete road there was no reason for me to reach that level of heebie-jeebies that fast. And later in my life, I did in fact go up and have a conversation with the mountain, and it did get better. But there were several years where it was not a happy mountain.
Mm.
And so this is an example of somebody through belief and stupidity making life bad for everyone around them.
I'm also going to say there's the aspect of what we call vending machine magic.
Vending machine magic, which is you do a certain thing, you get a certain response. Which many people think is how magic works. If you do the ritual, then you will get this response. And magic is not generally like that, as far as I can tell. So many things affect it. There are rituals that you can, but you don't put the coin in and get magic out.
Right.
So much. It is along the lines of the kind of magic that people think happens due to media. The Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the practical magic, all of these things where people
outcome-based magic with the realization of what has to go on the process that carries you to the outcome.
Mhm.
Right.
The very surface, the very surface level magic where you see the window dressing, but you don't see the underpinnings. Pinnings? Is it
Pinnings.
underpinning? Underpinnings. Okay. And if you don't have a firm base to build on, you're building your castle on the sand, and it won't have the appropriate effect. Now, I can't remember if this was between the thing. I think it was well after that I had the conversation with the mountain about it's okay. You can stop that now, really. As I said, we're on a node. The ley lines, which energy flows through, come to meet really near our house. And so we had this history of being sold the nicest goats and having them get to our house and become hellions. And I realized nicest goats is a really weird thing to say.
I know some very nice goats.
Yes, that's the thing. I've met really nice goats. I've met kind goats, sweet goats, smart goats. And none of the goats that we had ever, they were smart.
But they had earned their horns
In a
elsewhere.
really stupid way. They were so smart. And other animals, our chickens acted weird. The peacocks didn't last. The pigs were pigs. The cats are cats. I haven't met too many peacocks in person, but you have not been hit by a bird until you have been punched by a peacock. I gotta tell you that. I deserved it. You shouldn't tell them pixies. I'm gonna tell you about the pixie infestation.
Okay.
One summer, much like one gets infected by fleas, we had a pixie infestation. My little sister is of a certain temperament. And that means that it is really fun for spirits of a certain personality to mess with her. And so they come and they mess with her. And this particular summer, it wasn't just her. Things were going wrong in small, annoying ways all across the house. Things kept disappearing. Things kept reappearing in other places. And she could not keep her bed made. She would make her bed. She would leave the room. She would come back in. The bed would be unmade. She would make her bed again. She would leave the room for another 5 minutes. The bed would be unmade. Which, you know, as a jumpy person kind of made her a little creeped out.
Yeah.
As I said, things went wrong. Things got unscrewed. Things got unscrewed. Things fell off the wall. Most notably, I actually had found a goat in the pasture, and there was a crook in a tree. You know, with the two trees growing up from each other, and there was no way for the goat to have gotten their head into the crook because they were partially up on their hind legs when I found them. And there were no rocks nearby, and there was no reason for it to have tried to jump through it and failed. But this goat had gotten their head stuck in the crook of the tree, which is a very classic pixie bothering thing. That's the kind of thing that you read about. I'm getting to the fence. Sorry. This was really weird. But we had a movable fence at the time, which was made out of plastic. It was electricized, and you could shift around to various things. And I looked out there, and I'm like, what's wrong with that part of the fence? Fell down again. And I went out there, and I discovered that the fence had not fallen down. The fence had one of the sections, they had poles that stuck in the ground, had been turned upside down and then shoved back into the ground. Again, there is no way for that to happen, because if any of us had put the fence there, we would have seen that it was twisted, and therefore, you know,
Right.
twisted, so it was not doing the job of the fence. And so if any of us had done it, we would have seen it. And of various things that our neighbors could do, it would not be sabotaging our fences, because the sheep got out enough on their own.
Yes, also to go in the barn, turn off the electricity.
I did have to go into the barn. I did have to turn off the electric fence before I could fix the electric fence. So it was not that somebody had been able to do this.
Yeah.
So that was the year I invented Pixie Fixer, which is my quick fix pixie spray, where you take an iron nail, some salt, and a leaf of stinging nettle, and you soak it in water, and then you put it in a spray bottle, and you get to pretend you're Hoggle from the beginning of Labyrinth, and you go around and you spray it in the corners of your room, and you say, "Get out!" And you go, "Stop that!" And that was when my sister's bed managed to stay made. So it was effective. However, I have always had an interesting relationship with the Fae, although pixies are in a kind of a weird place, in my opinion.
They're not Fae.
They're not Fae the same way an elf or a fairy is. They're very much more just kind of spirits, which is not the same thing, but because of how they act, I refer to them as pixies. So your mileage may vary, which with magic, that is a very true statement just in general. Okay. Other stupid things I have seen or heard people doing. Let us get under the large header of love spells.
Oh, God.
Yes. Going to the magic store and say, teach me how to cast a love spell. And the response
I
from the magic store says, no. And they look in the books and they find love spells because people want to sell grimoires when they make them.
Mhm.
Or they get the really old ones. We had a piece of a paperback printing of old-fashioned spells, which included such gems as, in order to attract money, first get a good-sized emerald.
Mhm.
Preferably with some platinum.
Yeah. In order to be invisible, take a black cat's ear and boil it in milk from a black ewe for 7 days. I don't
Ooh.
want to be invisible that bad. I really don't. There is nothing that I could do invisible that would be worth the
Yeah.
smell of boiling milk for 7 days. Completely aside, taking off a cat's ear.
Yeah.
So they go so then a week later, the same girl who asked the magic store owner to cast a love spell comes back into the shop and says, "You need to tell me how to take a love spell off." And they're like, "What did you do?" And they said, "Well, I cast a spell so he couldn't live without me, and he's in the hospital."
Mm.
And so they're like, "Ah." And any number of unfortunate bindings, callings, and or lust spells. Oh yes, and the vague calling of things to you. A lady who wanted to be safe, and they're like, "I'm not going to call for anyone specific. I just want a nice, friendly, redheaded guy who will love me so much." And she got given an Irish setter. So she got herself.
I would go with that, actually. I would
Yeah,
take
no,
the Irish
no.
setter over the guy anyway.
Better off.
Yeah, no. Given what I know about dating, even what I know about Irish setters, I'd take the Irish setter.
Yeah.
In the end, it will get you into less trouble.
Yeah.
So at this point where I was looking, we were going to a lot of pagan shows where there are a lot of people of dubious skill, intelligence, and training. But I wanted money. So I came up with a series of easily undoable and fairly harmless love spells. So I could sell them, sell them love charms because that's what they wanted. And I wanted money. I'm not proud, just tired. But the first basic love spell was to attract love to you. You take a small bar of chocolate and write on it, "Love is sweet," and you let it dissolve onto your tongue while picturing the kind of person you want to be in a relationship with. And this will help attract magic to you, attract love to you.
I know people
Secondary.
who screw that up.
What?
I know people who could screw that one up.
Yes, I'm not saying you couldn't screw that one up. I'm just saying that as user-friendly spells go, it's
Yeah,
pretty
it's very
harmless.
easy.
It's easy. It doesn't involve messing with anyone else's will,
Well.
or really anyone in particular, as opposed to the other one, which I designed to be easily undoable, which was you take a piece of paper with your name and the name of your loved one, whom you should at least already be friends with, hopefully, and you take it and you wrap it around a stick of cinnamon, and you take a red ribbon and you tie it around. You tie the parchment to the cinnamon to it, and say, and this is in fact a binding spell, and I feel bad about it now. But at least it was very clear. If something goes wrong and it is not what you wanted, unwind the ribbon, burn the parchment, burn the cinnamon stick, burn the ribbon, and this will break the spell. And at the end of it, at the end of the little booklet on love spells, I wrote, "This is a bad idea. Please communicate with the people around you instead." Because, yeah. I see in the chat someone mentioned a while ago, people not putting the energy down that they drew up.
Oh, God.
Yes, speaking of Penzic, but also some cons I've been to. I went to the same con twice in the same year. I mean, actually, I heard the story. Someone was having one of the pagan cons and they came back to the same hotel the next year, and there was a spot in the hall where someone had stood, and if you stood in it, you felt like you were sinking. And that's more a case of overgrounding an area rather than grounding yourself than rather than not putting the energy down.
I was just seeing what time it was.
It is. Then of course there was things that happened in my childhood, the pixie bothering of me, which is why I have a bad relationship with them, which was never as bad as my sister, because my response is stop it. Whereas her response was to jump and go, "Why is this happening to me? I'm sure I did it." Her response is to freak out, and my response is to
Slap them.
basically slap them. Yes, just don't do this. It is not worth your trouble to mess with me, because I will get mad. I will not get scared.
My response to nearly anything is, "This must be my fault."
Anyhow, I completely forget what I was trying to say.
You're wrapping it up. And
I'm wrapping it up. But one of Mother's friends had just had children, and she decided she was going to invite fairies into their yard for the children to play with. And I thought this was a terrible idea, and Mother thought this was a terrible idea. And a couple of summers ago, she was visiting, and Mother mentioned it, and she's like, "I got better." And that is really the important thing of stupidity and magic. You can be really stupid when you were younger, or you can be stupid when you're older, and nobody is immune to being stupid, but you can always get better. You can always learn things and say, "Okay, that was stupid. I'm not going to do that again." You can learn from other people's mistakes. Please learn from other people's mistakes. Talk to other people. Admit that mistakes can happen with magic, because in the types of people where we have the harmless, the benign, and the really freaking dangerous, thinking that even though you're doing this thing, it's not really real and it's not really going to happen, but I'm going to do this thing anyway, because what if it was, is dangerous. So be aware that what you're doing has consequences. Be willing to accept the consequences of what you do, and accept that anything can be a learning experience. Even if you do it right, as is witnessed by the Gardnerians of Athena, you can still learn something very important. Now I'm going to pass this back to my mother, because she's much better at talking to people than I am. I'm better at being entertaining, and she's better at talking to people.
Thank
We're
you
really
for your
close to the end.
service.
Is there any questions?
Are there
before she
any
runs away?
questions? Would anyone like anything expanded on, clarified, or anything like that?
No, but I enjoyed it very much.
Thank
Yes,
you. I
I
do
did too.
aim at being entertaining, and anytime my mother doesn't have a guest, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be vaguely mystical and entertaining.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh
you.
yes, when I used to do this lecture at Pagan Cons, I would come in with a candle and I would put it on the table in front of me, and I said, if anyone can light this without a match or a lighter, just using magic to light this candle, you could take it away free and I will be very impressed. I'm sure it's possible. And a magical energy creates heat. No one ever did it. So practice carefully, spell responsibly, and have fun.
Thank you, Willow.
Thank you.
I love my children. They teach us so much. And
So much like
right
you.
now, it's coming to
I
the end.
do
of the
have
hour.
one spontaneous combustion story.
Oh, you have a spontaneous combustion? We got to fit that in.
Yeah, we were having a Yule circle. It was about 7-8 years ago. Someone the woman who wanted to be evoke Frigg, but call her the Queen of the Fairies. Yeah, no. And okay, we had a nice little Yule thing, and we put out milk and honey for the Fae and our Yule and whatever. Okay, good. So this is all good, and she ends up going home, and I'm usually the more or less sober one, no matter how much I drink. Usually, and then I drop another log into the brazier, and it breaks, and it's sputtering coals all over the place. Okay, this is not good. The one irresponsible person, there's a fire poi, whatever, and it was sitting in a dishwasher, and it just spontaneously combusted. And he was wise enough to get a wet rag, put it out, the whole thing. And I'm saying, okay, she's gone. And I said, check her in the milk and honey, stat. It was gone. I said, let's get it out there now. But having the fire poi was spent, and it was like people were playing with that earlier, and it was just sitting in the kitchen. No one was smoking. There was no external frames. It was in a dishwasher and it caught on fire. So, yeah, people doing stupid stuff. Oh, and speaking of fire, I've heard of 2 other instances: people evoking Chongo.
Oh, Chongo.
But I don't. They're not invoking Legba or anything like that, and houses and tents and things burned down, and I'm like, you think, so I don't know. you know, you got to follow the rituals right. You know, if you're going to invoke an African diaspora being, you got to invoke Legba first. So it's, but nope. But it's not my space to tell them what to do. Yeah. And they're not listening. So
I think not listening may be the most dangerous thing.
Yeah.
yeah.
And if you've got to do your research. If they'd done any research, they'd know invoke Legba first. If they had, it's like I found myself in a ritual once and they said, we're dedicate ourselves to a god or goddess. And I'm like, oh, okay. I've been doing, I want to learn how to spin linen. I've been spinning wool. I'm gonna, I will pledge myself to Mother Hola. Yeah, right. It took me years. I would want to go to bed and she would say, as it's midnight, I'm tired, I'll do the dishes in the morning. She said, you will not, those dishes need to be done. It's like, okay, the dishes, okay, but you haven't swept the floor. It's like, yes, she spins flax. She is also a housekeeper.
Ah,
Research.
Yeah.
Know who you're invoking. Know all about them that you can find out.
closest I came to anything like any of this is I managed to invoke Arachne once in the middle of a group of spinners at an SCA event. We're sitting there all talking about our spinning, and spinning on our wheels, and all of a sudden there's a huge spider in the center of the circle.
You say, oh, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely. And eventually somebody was a little too creeped out and we guided her out the door, but well,
but anyway, so that is our lighthearted one. I'm got a couple people who are trying to find their free Wednesday, which is kind of hard in December
yeah.
to find any free time. Thank you for coming. Tell your friends because we try and make this useful and entertaining. And the changing times, if you were at changing times and you have the registration, the 1 month is going all the way to the end of the month, so you can you've still got a good 3 weeks, I think, to most of 3 weeks to watch all of the classes that were at the conference, or then add an extra. Give us a little bit more money and get and you have 11 more months. But the Wednesdays are free and they're just going on YouTube. So tell your friends. And let me turn that off. Don't call me when I'm on the show, doing the show. Anyway, so I'm going to say goodnight and stop the recording. And wear your masks and wash your hands. Stay safe.
You too.
Safe.